places. I know fewer than 18 persons lost their lives to an explosion at the Abulado Close in Festac, Amodofin, Abulado area actually, in Festac area. But yes, indeed, we're going ahead to focus on that this morning. And so we've got he was one of those who also looked out for, was on the venue at the scene yesterday. Ibrahim Farinloye is the acting coordinator, Lagos Territorial Office of NEMA. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning, sir.
Well, we're on the Lagos State officials, the government, and the rest of them will be at that venue this morning, so they were not able to be here. But we'll also be speaking to them at the venue in the course of the programming. But thank you for coming on this morning. But having seen several scenarios, the explanation from NNPC, the police authorities, you earlier were speaking about what transpired, but when you were on the site, give us the experience, how it played out for you.
You know, when disaster strikes and you have a distress alert, the first thing you do as a coordinating agency, you get in touch with your stakeholders. The closest stakeholders to the site, we move in. So the first agency we called was State Fire Service, who related that it was a building that was on fire. It had nothing to do with a pipeline. Secondly, there was meanwhile, before that distress alert came, I stayed at Agege. I had a bang. And based on my experience in Maiduguri and some other places, which is on explosions, especially IED or bombs, such sound came, but we were not expecting it. I did not expect it, so I just felt maybe it was something that was, maybe rain was about gathering. So after about 30, 45 minutes, I received distress alert. I called the State Fire Service, I called the Federal Fire Service, because at first time there, we have both agencies very close there. So the State Fire Service told me that they suspected multiple buildings on fire. I now asked, what of the blast that came? Because the explanation was that there was a blast before the fire.
So at that time, they had not determined what was the cause.
What was the cause? So I now asked, what of the blast that came? They said the blast came, and as a result of the blast, it was then the fire started. Well, we stopped. The Federal Fire Service said it was a pipeline fire. Meanwhile, with this, all of us have to move on site because of the blast. So it was from there, all of us now moved.
But it took a while before they got to the site.
You know, of course, the Federal Fire Service, the guys, the ones at Festac moving, you know, Festac to that place, it's not so far, it's about 10 minutes or 10 minutes plus. So they got there. When they got there, they told me it was a pipeline fire.
But they were not able to quell the burning.
They can't. That it got to the pipeline site. So on getting to the scene, we couldn't see anything very close, but because of the effort we made, some areas were opened up. The truck the CP talked about was there, but at that time...
What do you mean you couldn't see anything close?
You know, because of the flame and other things, everything around that area was covered. So the next thing for us, while the fire service would be battling the fire, we started moving out from one house to the other. It's a very, very dangerous assignment we did, but because we knew it was a movement area, so people could be trapped and possibly they could be alive. So that was where we started recovery. As emergency phase, we combined the two phases together. While the fire is on, we have to start recovery. Search and rescue was going on. That's where we got some families, especially the family that were trapped in the vehicle. They were going to church. We got there. It was inside their vehicle. I don't know how the vehicle got to the parking space because they were out very close to the scene. But the vehicle, it was a serious damage to the vehicle. So we got out, we got them out.
Out of the vehicle?
Out of the vehicle, dead. So while we were doing that, arranging with Red Cross, because Red Cross was closer, we have to allow the fire service to continue working while I mobilize the Red Cross so that we can continue searching and doing other things with NEMA. So while that was going on, the Federal Fire Service was, federal and state, because we had Federal Fire Service, State Fire Service, Nigerian Air Force, and Nigerian Navy Fire Servicemen that turned up. And we had about 9 fire trucks there. However, our major challenge, why the fire was not put out early, was unavailability of fire hydrant around that area. So
the whole of that area?
Yes, we didn't have. So possibly we moved to Navy Town to get restock with water. So that's why it took us so long. So as the operation was going on, started reducing, we were able to reduce it to a size that it was contained within there was a pit. There was a pit in that place, and between the vehicle and the pit, we have about 15 meters.
You mean is it truck?
Apart. Yeah.
The truck.
A truck. The truck is not is carrying hardcore stones, which is usually used for when you want to construct. Not granite, hardcore stones, because we were able to move in. I saw the hardcore stones, which was...
Where was the pit in this image? Is it close by here?
No.
Is it the one burning right there?
It is the one burning. Okay. There is a content coming out from it.
What kind of content?
Well, I wouldn't say, but it was presumed to be PMS.
It had to burn out.
It has to.
They had
yeah.
shot NNPC.
So because immediately I received that alert, I called the GM, NNPC, who confirmed that well, it has been shut down and they are moving to get the valves closed too. Because when you shutting down within the nearest point, you shut down. But when you don't close the valve, the supply will still moving in and it can burst the shutting down. So they have to go and close the valve. So it was on this process, when we saw this, then we assumed that the blast that came up, it was later, while we were doing myself, Federal Fire Service, State Fire Service, Red Cross, we started moving around to see samples because a disaster scene is presumed to be crime scene. So we started looking around because the devastation in my years of experience, even in Boko Haram territory, the devastation cost was just too enormous.
And I was going to ask you your experience, given this particular explosion and the previous ones. What do you think the difference was? Because lots of people were somewhat confused as to the nature of the blast, the impact, the distance. Even those who were 7 kilometers away still felt it. So what was the big difference in this one in terms of how we... Yeah, go ahead.
I have never seen such. I've been involved in Boko Haram operations in the Northeast. I was there as coordinator, and I've moved, even, at the time, our vehicle was also bombed, but it was well. But the devastation caused, I was just underestimated, I assumed that it's over 50. Definitely, this morning we are starting enumeration. My guys are already there. So we are starting enumeration because the number of people that are displaced, that are affected, is enormous. So the 50 houses is just underestimated based on what I saw there. Aside from those ones that collapsed, total collapse, anything within 30 square kilometers, all the houses went down. But far off, the rooftops, if it's just a cylinder, gas cylinder, I don't think it has to be multiple gas cylinder. So the police ordinance, explosive ordinance, have to do thorough job. So I cannot say either the gas or the tanker, the truck that brought the stones. So until when proper investigation is done by the police, just like what the CP said, until when it is done before we can know what really happened.
But I'd like to also know about the casualty. There's been conflicting figures, and people would like to know, it's the morning after, and we're wondering, have you rescued everybody? Has there been an appropriate head count such that you know that nobody is missing, we've gotten everyone out of the rubble?
You see, when you get to a scene of disaster, the first thing you do is to make consultation, information sharing. However, when I was coming in, I saw bodies by people around, one landlord. At least I saw 4 bodies going out. So when I got in, I mobilized stakeholders. So we started moving. We got 11 in addition to the 4 I saw when they were taking them out. So that 11, that makes it 15. With the 15, there were speculations that school children were involved. So that speculation, the figure of the school children, some said 15, some said 17, 18, 19. But I don't want. Why I did not recognize the number of the school children, there are a lot of factors in disaster management we consider. The parents' conditions, we don't know the conditions that they have.
Did you see this rescue while your men got there?
Well, I couldn't, no, this one, I don't think we are there yet there. Though they're at the back of the scene, there are a lot of activities going on. But the real scene where the school children are located, there are a lot of things going on. So, we cannot be all over the place at the same time. So the school children, we don't really give information because of the nature, the external factor that it became, because the parents, some of them could have hypertension. Once they hear that story, yes, definitely it will have ripple effect on them.
But what can you say about the rescue? The way
this is,
citizens,
here where you see that excavator working, a reverend father approached me that he heard the voice of one of his pupils, because the school is a Catholic school, where we were fortunate, they were not in their hostel, they were in mass service when the incident happened. So all of them converged in a single place. So one of the volunteers, the resident who spoke with me said they were able to rescue them because all of them were together. Though the man who said they facilitated the rescue before our arrival said about 17 of them died. So that speculation, we don't want to take it into consideration because of so many factors. So that was why I did not mention anything about the 3, because the 2 additional people they talked about, 2 students and one of their principal, who was said to be a reverend father. That's why you are having a 17 or 18. But what we saw is what we have to relate with.
So were you able to rescue that pupil that was talked about?
No, there was nothing there.
Okay.
See the excavator worked and we got to the
So there was no
ground zero
pupil
there.
under that rubble?
No, nobody's, except individual houses, residential houses now. By the time we start, I think they must have started work by now. So when we go in there, one house or the other, we will try to see if there are people still trapped or not, or if there are people still under the rubble.
Well, you already gave us an idea of the extent. You said 30-mile radius. 30-mile radius.
I said square meter.
30 square
50.
meter radius
Yes.
of the environment.
Yes.
Did you think this could have happened if proper precautions had been taken? Or rather, maybe I should ask it better. Do you think proper precautions were taken to avert this kind of disaster?
You see, technically, right of way is given that we must comply with, but we don't comply with. Most of the, for instance, on the right-hand side of the scene, enough space was given, which is the school. And maybe that was why we didn't have much casualties there. Because where we recovered those bodies are on the residential area. And their houses are just too close. The right of way was not obeyed, just like what the GMD said. So precautions, 1, marketing on the right of way. I counted about 14 gas cylinders, less than 300 meters away from the scene of the disaster. So the activities going on, I learned there was a market around that area too. And secondly, they said very close to that pit, there's a Indomie seller woman. very close, not more than 20 meters away from that point. So if that point has been there, precautions have not been taken. Simply.
No, my colleague asked you the other time, if there were similarities between previous explosions and this one. One would then wonder if these precautions had not been taken from the experiences that he asked you and you responded to. What's the assurance we have that there aren't such latent occurrences now that we should prevent, excuse me, so that we do not have this kind of casualties again?
You see, in 2015, we have what Nigeria was fully represented at the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. Response to disaster is no longer invoked anywhere in the world. We don't need to wait for disaster to occur before we start.
So it's prevention methods.
Prevention, identify risk, work on the risk, prevent it from developing to the disaster stage. And if disaster will occur, because at times, most disasters you can mitigate the effects so that it won't have. That's why the National Emergency Management is now advocating. We are having little challenges with investment in disaster risk reduction. But the DG has asked us, like 2 weeks ago, we were at Okeari. We were trying to get the marketers, get themselves insured, and we are going to train some of the marketers at Okeari now, train them as fire marshal. And these are process, because when something like that happens, they will know. You've seen the market.
When you say marketers, so the markets women?
Market men and women. They will sponsor, at least they've given us about 10 from CDAs, from the boys around, the area boys around. They gave us some of them that will be trained as fire marshals. If they see any hazards around, they will alert.
Alert NEMA.
NEMA or any other security agencies, because some of the market in those areas, when you go deep into it, some of them have tanks.
I know agencies usually complain about responding, how easy or difficult it is as a result of when it happens, people who usually come around there. But we saw some of those who were there as first responders responding. So what messages or what was the experience this time in that regard?
You see, the first responders, which are the community-based people, they play two roles. Like the school children they evacuated, that's one of their major roles. And we don't always go against them. What we always try to do is to coordinate them, behave properly, because they have critical role to play. We can't access any building. I am living at Agege. If an incident happens at Ogba, I don't live there.
Were you able to coordinate anyone this period?
Yeah, we did. We need to get information of the environment. We need to get information about that area so that we will be able to get to the people at the right time. So the people around have to be coordinated properly, and this has been taking place. So we were able to work with the people here. Like four of the recovered bodies, some of these people brought them out for us.
Well, still talking about the difference in this explosion and the previous ones. Now, clearly, no one seems to say that this was as a result of pipeline vandalism, because we've seen a similar thing before. This one, from the comments of the Commissioner of Police in Lagos, Mr. Dumusu, was talking about the truck, which you also alluded to, which went in there and perhaps ignited it. The NNPC was to say perhaps as a result of the gas deposits there, that may have contributed as well to the way this one turned out. So, yes, you've identified no water hydrant. That's part of the reason why you couldn't put out some of those things. But in terms of us improving in identifying risks, has there been any improvement? Have you seen any improvement, given at least maybe from 2015 up until today, when you've gone to some of the disaster areas?
Yes, there have been tremendous improvements.
Such as?
You can know that Ijedodo, very close to that scene, almost every week we have incident there. Arepo, almost every week we have incident there. there were efforts made where the community, especially the traditional institutions, we mobilized them, we had meetings with them, we got the problems, and we were able to get them, see the project defending and protecting the pipeline to be protected, and that has yielded positive result. The new phase of it is most of the current happenings now, you will see, is an open field. Open field in a densely populated area. So that means we have some gap to fill in that area. And we are going to fill it. We've started making effort to have meetings with the residents around all these areas so that we can mobilize them. The activities going on around residential areas like Abule Egba, Aziz, all these areas, it's a new, dynamism. The disaster is dynamic. And with the dynamism, you have to adjust to how it comes. If they can't work at the outside area, they are now coming here to work. So that's what we are going to. There are tremendous improvements.
Today we are talking about pipeline and pipeline-related explosions. Another one that many people have said is another disaster waiting to happen is that of power lines. Is there any?
Yes, power lines. There has been effort now. Any building, 50 meters, less than 50 meters away from power lines, they are going to be dealt with. Any structure, 50 meters to the power line, either power line or high tension, they are going to be dealt with.
Well, you know that in Lagos today, there are many, many houses built under power lines. What's to be done about that?
Well, the appropriate agency, the lead agency in electricity will take care of it.
Right.
We are fully aware, and it has been raised.
Okay.
And we are looking at it. About 2 or 3, I think February, we had a meeting with Ikeja Electricity Distribution Company because there were issues we are trying to trash out. So we raised the issue, and effort is ongoing. The Lagos State government is also trying for rural electrification. So they can't do the rural electrification without proper safety precautions. One thing I want us to know is that investments, foreigners will not look at the country where, any society where you have too many disasters to come and invest. So disaster risk reduction is the main thing. How effective your disaster risk reduction is what they look at first, because they have to ensure that their investment will be safe.
Do we have a policy on emergency response? I mean, if you go to some countries, you see that in 10 minutes, the certain people have to respond, either fire service, they have to be there at that scene, and they will tell you, we'll be there in 10 minutes. So in Nigeria, do we have like a policy that this is a time we have to get there, and in fact, we're working to make it better? So what's the average time, response time for emergency?
There is no average time in response time. You get there as soon as it happens.
So when
we have policy, we have disaster response plan.
Right.
And this plan specifies the police, you don't have anything to do than to control crowd. Civil defense, you don't have anything to do than to protect public and private properties. So it has been spelled out. As soon as that's why when I received this alert, the nearest agency there was happening in that area. So if they hadn't heard, they will move in there.
Perhaps.
Give us.
Do you have an idea how soon they responded to it?
No, as soon as, for instance, how soon as they get there depends on the information.
No, but does NEMA have a target in terms of when you need to arrive or respond?
For instance, initially they were talking about plane crash that within 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, if you have the information at the right time, but who gives us information? We have 10, 15 minutes for any maximum that you must get to the scene. But it depends on, I heard the blast around 8, and I did not get any information about the real fact until 8:45.
So after the information, you have 10, 15 minutes to get there.
That's the maximum time. Because the police around you, the traditional around us, around that community, must believe in that community. Is supposed to immediately give information so that we can swing into action. But they don't. The information dissemination is the problem. Some of them will feel that, no, it's not my business. Or some of them might feel, let me use it. Let us carry out the search and rescue before this, without relaying the information back. The person they're supposed to call, we are getting a grassroots, we are going to train some people on grassroots emergency management. When we train them, we tell them these are the things. Though NYSC, we have NYSC and NEMA who are doing that work.
All right, we do thank you for coming on. Mr. Brian Franilo is the acting coordinator for the Lagos Territorial Office of NEMA. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, sir.